New features coming to Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3 include tons of newly original mechanics, a new type of story mode, maybe even similar to the extra story from Xenoverse 2's DLC 6, unique transformations, highly updated gameplay, and greatly boosted performance due to the fact that the game is actually on next generation only, just like Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Hello everyone, it's me again, Steve Doji here, back to more Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 to 3, and again I wanted to talk about all the new features we're going to be getting in Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3, because I want to remind you guys, a lot of them are actually being implemented into Xenoverse 2 right now, and a lot of them actually are already in Dragon Ball The Breakers, as well as, again, several news outlets we've had ever since the Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3 major leak that is, again, official from Bandai Namco itself, that the moment we knew what the next game was called, all the sources are like, oh hey, I guess all of this information was pertaining to Xenoverse 3, because again, all of this stuff lines up way too perfectly. Again, the original release they were supposed to be during Dragon Ball The Breakers release, etc, etc, right? So without further ado, let's really just get into this. The first thing I want to talk about is obviously the next gen, because the next gen is probably the quickest thing to talk about. Xenoverse 2's next gen, as you guys might remember, at the time of that coming out, the next gen update for Xenoverse 2 was greatly disappointing. The main reason for this is because obviously Xenoverse 2 is a dreadfully old game to begin with, so the next gen update wasn't going to do anything for it. It's not like with games like Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, where the next gen update actually does improve the graphics a lot because the game is more recent. And Xenoverse 3 is obviously not going to burden itself by releasing on previous hardware. It's going to do a Dragon Ball Sparking Zero and only release on the newer stuff, obviously, because that way the game can be as pretty as possible, you know, be as big as possible, not be held back by any restrictions that previous consoles may have. Hopefully Xenoverse 3 doesn't immediately come out for the Switch 2, because if it does, then that probably does mean that it's going to be a bit handicapped performance-wise. But I imagine that they'll probably go for a big global console launch, and then I'll get a Switch announcement later, like with Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, because again, Sparking Zero is a big game. They had to make the actual game first, and then make the Switch port later, rather than doing it all at the same time, which just, you know, kind of drags down the entire game on all the platforms. This does mean that we'll be actually lucky enough to get a Xenoverse game that could even look even slightly close to Sparking Zero. Now, I don't think they'll get that crazy, because that is insane graphically. I think we'll definitely get something that looks closer to Kakarot, if anything better than Kakarot, because again, Kakarot's kind of old now. It wouldn't be too hard for Bandai Namco with their giant new wealth of money that they get from, you know, toy sales, Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle and Legends, the card games, you know, movie sales from Dragon Ball Super Broly and Super Superhero. The Moral Arc announcement is also going to bring in like a lot of money as well. So I think it wouldn't be too crazy to say that we're going to get a Dragon Ball game that definitely looks better than DBZ Kakarot. Xenoverse 2's models are, again, very outdated. If you just look at the way Goku and Vegeta look, they look like bizarre, you know what I mean? The newer character models, they're for the most part fine. If you look at the way DBS Broly looks, he looks great, all that stuff, but mostly Goku and Vegeta, they're just really, really rough around the edges. So I do think we'll be getting a Dragon Ball game that at least looks as good as Kakarot, and if we're extremely lucky, it'll look somewhat like Sparking Zero, but without, obviously, you know, the handicaps that Sparking Zero has gameplay-wise, because the gameplay of Xenoverse is actually some of the people's most favorite gameplay in any Dragon Ball game. Xenoverse gives you the freedom to basically just fly around the map and use your 4 super attacks and 2 ultimates, which is absolutely colossal for a Dragon Ball game. You don't even have movesets that big in the Budokai games, and you can really just slap on as much like crap as you want on any of the playable characters in the Budokai games. Xenoverse 2 has a lot to offer gameplay-wise, so obviously, again, the next-gen improvements, which would probably add a 5th super attack slot, if I'm being honest. Maybe even a 3rd ultimate slot. Jesus Christ. There's a lot we can actually really get out of Xenoverse 2 being on next gen, so I wanted to talk about that really quick, because I don't think people understand how big of a leap that actually is for the game's quality. And I think a good example of this quality change, we can actually see it in, again, drumroll, Dragon Ball The Breakers. I love bringing this up, because not only is Breakers a very weird game that just happens to exist at a very weird time, but it has a lot of features that people have begged to be in Xenoverse 2. And I'm going to start with the most, you know, relevant one, the transformations. Dragon Ball The Breakers has extremely unique transformation designs for, you know, the transformations that are in the game. Now, while it's not anything as crazy as, like, you know, Giant Form Namekian and stuff like that, because again, Breakers only has human playable characters, Dragon Ball The Breakers does do something very interesting with the forms that do actually make it into the game. A great example is stuff like, again, Beast, Super Saiyan 3, Super Saiyan, in fact, any just Super Saiyan form in general, because you actually notice, if you play Breakers especially, that these forms actually have unique designs. A great example is Super Saiyan 4. Super Saiyan 4's hairstyle actually changes depending on what your base form's hairstyle, and actually the same with Super Saiyan 1, 2, and 3. Some Super Saiyan 1 designs look like Super Saiyan 3 just because it might have like a longer hairstyle, like the Raditz hairstyle, for example. When you go Super Saiyan 1, it doesn't just put like a goofy wig on top of your head like Beast form in Xenoverse 2. You actually do get to keep the long long, crazy like hair, except now it's more spiky and with the golden parts too. Which reminds me, Breakers actually does have spiked up hair. So I think it's safe to say that obviously Xenoverse 3 will naturally have that too, because again, Breakers was supposed to be the original Xenoverse 3. We're not going to get into that because I feel like I bring that up every single video I talk about Xenoverse 3, but it's all too, it's so hilarious figuring that out, by the way. When we found out that we were supposed to get Xenoverse 3 years ago, it makes me go, oh my god, that was supposed to be Dragon Ball Breakers. Again, look at the game's release dates. Every Dragon Ball game releases like 2 years between each other, and for some reason, Breakers needed 2 years to release after the game before it, which was Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, like fat chance Bob. I don't believe that. That was definitely supposed to be Xenoverse 3, especially when you consider that they were announcing like the end of Xenoverse 2 like DLC support back like when? Like what was it? Like 2019, 2020 or something like that? With the Supreme Kai of Time. Oh no, it was the Margin Supremacy DLC pack. That's what it was. But I don't want to get into it. That's a whole can of worms. But Breakers was supposed to be Xenoverse 3, and they realized they could make more money, so instead they just made Breakers and they delayed Xenoverse 3, which again, I'm not gonna lie, that's just way better. I'd prefer for the next Xenoverse game to be a super high quality game with more time and love put into it. I think a great example is compare characters that released at the start of Xenoverse to characters that release in a DLC. You can't compare launch day characters in Xenoverse to the unique mechanics that characters like, you know, Super Baby 2 give us, transforming DBS Broly, ultra supervillain characters, you know, even just transformed versions of pre-existing DLC characters like DBS transforming Gogeta and full power Jiren. A lot of these characters just come with like cool unique mechanics or skills that have pretty like nice like gimmicks to them. That's not something we'd get if they like, you know, rushed Xenoverse 3 out. We would probably just get something that's slightly better than Xenoverse 2. I want something way better than Xenoverse 2 as a, you know, as a sequel to one of the most legendary Dragon Ball games ever. A Dragon Ball game, the only other Dragon Ball game, by the way, to have motion like the Tenkaichi games, where it really has people talking about it for years and years and years, even if the game, you know, kind of isn't really getting that much support anymore. Speaking of support, did you know Xenoverse 1 servers are still active right now? I don't know why, because Xenoverse 2 is literally the same game, but it has more. Like, it has the same parallel quests, and even the Legend DLC pack story, that probably costs less than buying Xenoverse 1, and that's literally all of Xenoverse 1 story mode in Xenoverse 2. So, I have no idea. Maybe Xenoverse 1 is really integral to the way Xenoverse 2 servers are set up, in which case maybe we'll finally see the servers go offline, or the servers won't affect the online connection of the next game, which should be, you know, Xenoverse 3. And another thing when it comes to the Dragon Ball Xenoverse story mode, actually, is Xenoverse 3 story mode is 100% not going to be the same. I want to point out how many times Xenoverse 2 story mode has actually done branching paths or multiple endings after the launch of the game, obviously. Because we first got it with DLC 6. DLC 6 has, you know, the unique feature of the branching story paths where you can pick your different mentors to go down different paths, etc. And we even had DLC packs where you actually have choices inside the story that decide how it goes. A good example is, do you sacrifice Android 16 to, you know, use his final explosion move against Cell Max? Or do you sacrifice Gamma 2 so he can use his final sacrificial move against Cell Max? Xenoverse 2 has actually been experimenting with doing things differently, which I'm completely all for. Even the unique Future Saga chapter stories are really fun. A good example is the Goku Black arc, but Goku is in Zamasu's body the whole time and helps you take down Goku Black with this like weird Spirit Bomb Keyblade punch, which is so unbelievably cool. It makes me wonder why we didn't get something like that before. Other really great stuff, obviously, is again all the Gods of Destructions and UI Goku versus a full power like ultra supervillain Jiren, Frieza becoming a time god by using Shenron to rewrite like his existence into being born as a god rather than being born as a mortal. All of this really interesting stuff that they definitely didn't come up with at the time of making Xenoverse 2's launch story. Like, Xenoverse 2's regular story is just the Frieza saga, the Cell saga, the Buu saga, Dragon Ball Super up until the Goku Black arc, because the Goku Black arc finished getting animated at the time of Xenoverse 2's release. Otherwise, that would have also been a part of the story mode. But yeah, it's actually nice to see that we'll actually be getting new story stuff, because again, Xenoverse 2 has been flexing branching story paths and multiple choices for a while now. It's not crazy to say that they would probably just do that with Xenoverse 3. Now, obviously, it's not going to be as wild as... I think it's not going to be as wild as the extra story. I do want to say that. Extra story is insane. You can literally just end the story with Hercule as your mentor the whole time, and nothing happens. So, they're probably not going to do that, but it's going to create a very interesting gameplay experience, because people will be able to bring their favorite Dragon Ball characters alongside them as they go through the campaign, rather than having, like, Trunks follow you around in, because the game's next gen, it might not even be able to support the legacy time patroller thing. A good example is we probably can't transfer our Xenoverse 2 save data to Xenoverse 3 because there's a hardware gap. Maybe we will, but I doubt it, because will the Xenoverse 1 legacy time patroller also be in Xenoverse 3 as well? I don't think so, because again, the graphics and the engine is most likely going to be very altered and very different. They can't really bring those characters back unless if they adjust the models to, you know, look the same, but in higher quality, in higher fidelity. It's just a nightmare. So I think Xenoverse 3 is going to be extremely different when it comes to the way they handle things, from, you know, story, gameplay, presentation, transformations, DLC, the way the next gen is going to affect the game. There's just so much that's going to change how the game actually like functions and plays because of that hardware gap, and because of the amount of time that's passed and the way that they develop things now. I don't want to keep you guys here for too long. I've said my piece, and I hope my piece made sense to you, because again, Xenoverse 3, it's already had most of these features confirmed in it already, with, again, several tweets pointing out that it's going to be next gen only, etc, etc. So without further ado, I think that's a solid place to end the video, gang. Again, I do hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy the video, obviously, again, please leave a like in the video. Don't forget to subscribe, it greatly supports the channel, and leave a comment down below as to what you'd like to see next. I do love you all, fellas. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I will see you all next time. Take care, and peace. Bye-bye.